This conference will now be recorded.
Try this again.
So we're talking about you want to go, Mayor?
Yeah, we had received, the supervisor and the mayor received letters from John Heimerdinger, recognizing that he noticed that we had a consultant hired to do some work with the police department, which really isn't related to what his objective is, but nevertheless, it prompted it. John was raising the issue that he believes that 30% of our calls responded to by village police are actually out in the township. It's possible, I don't know that for sure. I put a question mark on it. But he's suggesting that this would be a good time to consider creating a townwide police department, incorporating the village police department, recognizing that that would have an impact on town taxes, of course, but that it would also provide some services that are not available and that the state does not provide, especially nuisance calls for vacation rentals. And then finally, he thinks that this is the time to use the old hospital site for a new police headquarters. I can say, based on conversation with the town, that the hospital site is not available. That is clearly being directed toward future development by the training center in Florida. However, we have talked in the past that a new public safety structure, maybe connecting the current firehouse or using that property in some manner, would be an attractive way to go. So this is all pure discussion at this point, but I think John's letter has precipitated some discussion again, which is a good thing. And the town supervisor seems, in fact, is discussing this with the town board in their own work session, which is taking place downstairs.
Fantastic.
Bill, you want to add to that?
So in response to Mr. Heimerdinger, I told him I agree with his letter. I think that we do answer a lot of questions or answer a lot of complaints outside the town. And I would like to see us expand to a town police department. And he understands the tax implications on that, on himself, anyway, he himself does. And as far as the using the hospital, you know, I'm open to exploring any options. As you guys are well aware, we've outgrown our space and for years now. And anybody who doesn't think so is welcome to come downstairs and take a tour. Happy to put through it.
It should be all about 30 seconds.
Yeah, but I'm open to all options. So, you know, I'm open that at least the discussion is reopened on this again that we haven't had in a long time.
One of the concerns that I sometimes hear here in the building is that with the courts being located here in the building, that many of the people that work here take high comfort in the fact that we have a police presence here. But I think that could very well end up that in a situation that on court days and during court hours, we would just have a police officer in the building stationed here in some manner that might compensate for that. I don't know that the court's always aware. I myself am not 100% sure there's always somebody behind that door. So, you know, I think it's an interesting discussion that John Heimerdinger has provoked here a little bit. I think our position on it should be to see how the town court views it and how we might go forward with this. But I think we all agree that the current space for our PD department is probably the most efficiently used space in the whole building. In terms of every space serving at least two purposes.
At least.
While she's going to the bathroom.
Yeah. So I'll pursue the supervisor, and I hope that we'll see where this goes.
Mayor, may I ask? I know I was having trouble getting in. My assumption, and maybe you've already talked about this, is that the village board always felt unanimously that we would be very interested in expanding the police force to include the town. The former supervisor was not a fan. So what I'm understanding now and I don't want to put it on the former supervisor. It just didn't seem to be the right time for the prior town board. But it seems now there seems to be an opportunity. Is that what I'm hearing? Where they may be, the new town board or the current makeup is open to such a move?
I wouldn't say that yet, Jason. I think the town board is considering John's letter, and it would be premature to suggest that they're going to jump on this.
Okay.
But in the event that they are, I wanted this board to be prepared with where this was coming from. So,
Okay.
and certainly there are opportunities. We've discussed this in the past, that our police department doesn't cover the whole village. We try to accommodate situations on the outside, but we do it without jurisdiction, and therefore we're not able to issue citations or do anything that
Okay.
that we do.
I was just a little, when we started talking about new locations for a police department, which is long overdue, I got the impression that there seemed to be more momentum from a town board perspective than there is. I didn't want to put the cart before the horse. Like, if they can get on board, we'll find them a spot, build them a castle if we need to.
As I said, this could be, I mean, we all realize the police department's one of the biggest parts of our general fund budget. It provides services 24/7 for the community, 7 days a week. And we all recognize, I think, and we all agree that the existing facilities were not designed for the operation and the amount of equipment and records that have to be maintained to have that department. So those are some of the points in favor of I think indicating interest in pursuing the discussion should the town board wish to do that.
Okay.
So enough on that for the moment, but I'll keep you informed of whatever comes back from the supervisor. I expect I might hear from him tomorrow on this. Also, and this is another town village project, the chairman of the board of supervisors of the county communicated with all the townships in the county, requesting that with the spread of COVID in the North Country and our county in particular, and North Elba in more so in particular, we're one of the leading 2 townships in the county in terms of the number of cases that are both have been tested positive and that are actively today we've got 12. But in any event, he was asking, expressing a need to expand the resources of contact tracing. In that light, ask each of the supervisors to liaise with rescue squads, fire departments, and town employees to establish a cadre of people that would be willing and able to respond to a request from public health to conduct welfare and compliance checks on quarantined or isolated individuals if required. As an FYI, this is Sean Gilliland, have carried out one of these personally at the request of public health, wearing an N95 mask and staying far from the person isolated. Could you inventory your PPE available for this and let public health know who in your town they would need to contact to do a welfare and compliance check? The supervisor and I worked on this some, and we came to the conclusion that there's 2 organizations in the community that are basically available 24/7 for this type of activity. Most of this would be in the daytime, and that would be our ambulance squad people and our police department. And both of these organizations are trained today in the event that they have to deal with somebody who is potentially a positive case. So we've had discussions with Bill's department. The supervisors had discussions with Mike Marshall and Larry Brockway. Both organizations are agreeable providing this additional service if and when it's called for. And what we have asked for from the county is a directive, if you would, that outlines exactly what would be required in the protocols that should be maintained. Although I think probably these 2 departments both know what the protocols are. So more will come on that, but I just wanted you to be aware of the fact that with the increasing number of cases in the townships, the county's health department's limited resources are being maxed out.
So, Mayor, would the police department, would they be doing that during one of their shifts? Or would we be funding that, or is New York State funding contact? Would we receive any sort of additional funds in order to pay for that?
This will be operated under the category, I believe, of public service. I do expect that more PPE is needed than what we have in stock, that the county will would step up and provide that. So the two things the county can help us with in making this work are a set of protocols that would be that we would all follow, all being all the townships, and B, that PPE be made available. Because although we have PPE in our departments, we're not exactly excessively stocked with it. Same is true, I think, even in our house. So,
With my thoughts, I don't really think it should be the police department's job to be going around doing contact tracing. I think they got better.
well, this is not contact tracing. This is once somebody has been told that they have to quarantine or isolate.
I still don't think that's the function of the police department. That's just my personal thing.
We ran into an issue last week where the county had called dispatch to say we need a welfare check. And my guys are like, well, first off, it's out of the town.
Well,
And they said Shea Police won't handle it. So my guys are like, so call the sheriff's office. And they're like, sheriff's office won't handle it either. So then it ended up at the ambulance, and the ambulance, I think, went to go do a quick look through a window and check.
The reason we looked at these, the PD department will do the village. We will not be doing outside. The ambulance squad can go anywhere. So, and at least at the moment, based on the supervisor's conversation feedback to me, they're agreeable to doing it. So we have the resources here that are trained, that can deal with it if and when we're required to do so. But this is purely, Jason, a public service at this point, unless somebody like FEMA comes through with some money, and I'm sure that'll be down the road if it ever happens.
Oh, certainly, all hands on deck. I can see that. I just didn't. We have enough police officers, from what I understand, and I know you talked to Chief more. Just if it's a as needed basis, it just seems. I didn't know if we had enough police officers to be able to, if we do get overwhelmed per se. So I just wanted to be sure. It seems, because even there was some teachers that were mentioning when they were quarantined, because the 7th grade shut down, that Essex County is so overwhelmed, the contact tracers, they weren't even able to touch base with them every day as they were supposed to. That's how overwhelmed they are. And I can see focusing on the village in itself, going out to the town as a whole might be potentially strenuous on the department. But
well, that's why we looked to two different organizations in the community, and we were trying to find organizations that already have some training and some experience as to how to deal with these. Could have also done the fire department, but your staffing is a little. We don't want to reach out to volunteers at this point for this type of
Just to clarify a little bit, maybe it's a little misunderstood. I spoke with Linda Beers and Don Jakes about this, because I don't want that to become a daily function, and a lot, so that we don't get in contact with COVID. Basically, what it is that they're supposed to call every day if somebody if they can't get a hold of that person after several attempts, they would like us to do a welfare check on their well-being at the house.
okay.
So I was comfortable doing that. Bang on the door, you alive? Okay, call public health. See you later.
Yeah. And that's the protocols that we've asked the county to put in place, so that we all know exactly what our responsibilities may be here.
Mayor, this might dovetail. Have you had any communications with Roost, since they are the primary sort of media communications component for the village, that maybe we should reintroduce a sort of more of a campaign to kind of encourage or the social distancing, mask wearing, any sort of information campaign, just to kind of push it for right now? Or If you haven't, have you thought about it?
We are, and there's a fair amount of publicity that's coming out. No, I haven't thought about expanding it any further than what steps we took this summer with Main Street, which continues to this day. We're not removing the signs because the requirement is still necessary. In fact, right now, with the increasing number of cases, I would think that people would be even more concerned about wearing a mask if they're out in the open public in a group.
I think internally from the community, I'm not necessarily concerned about that. A lot of people, parents, Mindy would be one to attest that they want to keep their kids in school. I think it's external. We want to keep the economy kind of moving here. And we want to at least communicate to our guests that we want to keep our schools open. And we're one of the only districts in the area that has 5 days a week. And we're pretty proud of that. And we need your help to maintain that. So maybe it would behoove us to reach out to Roosta.
I can
Maybe
talk to
have them.
that. They were very helpful, and they really have been a partner with the village in terms of what we've accomplished so far. It's amazing to me that we had thousands of visitors in this community right up till Labor Day and had no positive cases.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I guess I don't know whether this is second wave stuff or third wave stuff, but this time it seems to be moving around more. And the governor himself talks about this in terms of it's small clusters as opposed to massive numbers all at once, although we don't know yet what the Thanksgiving holiday is going to deliver in terms of this activity. There's no question that what the community has suffered here in North Elba has been little cluster groups. I mean, we're not privy to what businesses that these are coming out of, but we do know at least a couple of them have been either bars or restaurants, kitchens, where, and again, I'm not sure the clusters were in the actual facility itself, but are more likely that these people, once their day is done, they go out and get together for a beer. Don't know, Bill, maybe you know more about that than I do.
Not really. I mean, I think you're so right. You're pretty well.
And no one's told me he saw a chief at the bar or anything, so I don't know if he's seen it.
Family. I mean, 4 that were family contained, 5, and then most recently another 3. It was family contained. It was just circulated through their family, and I think that's driving our numbers up too. It's not just one person that's getting sick in the family and staying away and quarantining. It's the entire group of the family that's driving the numbers up as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so moving on, and this really is in Justin's and the chief's area of concern. The supervisor, I'm sorry, Mike Orticelli, the code officer, proposed again that he was proposing some compensation plans for the individuals that we have trained and certified now to do public or building inspections in the township. And again, this conversation is new. I understand Mike may be talking with the town board this afternoon during the work session downstairs. But I indicated to the supervisor that again, we can put a business plan together for anything, and we can factor it into the budgets. The town's problems is their budget's already set for the year. The village, we're coming up in March. We'll start developing, but that doesn't become effective until August. So if there's a program that can be developed, I think Jack Favreau is going to be the point person for the town on this discussion. That makes sense because Jack is somewhat familiar with fire concerns, and I've already raised the issue that my greater concern is to have the code office determining that we're going to use their fire drivers in a way that was not, and I had heard rumors that they were going to use it for short-term rentals. I'm going like, we can't even get the inspections done on the main buildings. There's 104 buildings in Lake Placid that require inspections. And that's how this came to me initially from Mike O. He didn't have enough personnel to do it. So we trained a couple of our people to help out. I don't know how much actual inspection work we've really done. But then I start hearing, well, we're going to use them for vacation rentals. I'm going like, you know what, that should be the last thing on the list. Those should only be done by exception when there's a complaint. We've got public buildings. In fact, I received a letter at the Northway property from Mike last winter indicating he would be scheduling an inspection of the property. It's never happened. The last time my property was inspected was 22 years ago by Jim Morganson, and that was the only time that was ever done. These are either supposed to be done every year, depending on the building, or every third year, and the Northway would fall into the third year category. So we understand Mike's got a shortage of manpower to do the job. We recognized it and agreed to have some of our fire driver personnel receive training. And I think we had 2. You're 1, right? So the question's going to be, there will be some further discussion, I think, involving Jack and the department in terms of how we can make this work more effectively. My only comment to Jack was, again, no problems with business model and budgets. We can figure that out. But my concern would be that when we remove people from the firehouse, I mean, we'd like to have at least 2 drivers down there. We've got to backfill that somehow. It's the same thing we do when we help the ambulance squad out with the driver.
Well, like we were talking to, if we're doing an inspection during hours, somebody else is there anyway. And if there is a need to leave the inspection, we simply say, we'll be back. If the inspections aren't, unless there's a critical safety issue, there's nothing that says we can't go back whenever the emergency's done or we schedule it for another day. We usually give a week or 2 heads up. I've been doing the schools and we just pretty much tell them, hey, we're coming this day. If something comes up, we'll contact you. It might be last minute. But they at least have advance notice that we're coming. Something could change. So, and after hours too. We have to stay after hours to do some of the stuff. It's obviously just part of it. So
again, just like the county request here, I think this is a good topic for discussion. But I think when we finally can agree on the protocols for how it should be done and under what conditions, I think those should be documented in writing so that everybody, including the boards, know what the expectation is and how it's going to be handled.
It'll become a negotiated item.
Well, the other thing I'm a little concerned about here is that our fire union may have some interest in what we're doing here, and what we don't know what that's going to do yet. Yeah, but when Mike talks about compensating them in a certain way, I think we have to be careful about how we approach that, because most unions get a little bit hyper about compensation. So we'll have to look at that. And I, it's possible to ask Brian Kremer to participate, at least to that extent. So more to come on that. These are all things that have come up in the last week, so Earth is moving. Brad, Public Works, a couple of projects you and I discussed today.
So one project, the Cell Science Center project, the engineering has come up with, they're probably going to need a booster pump station. It looks like it's going to come in at about $500,000. And one of our lift stations that handles that end of town, it appears is going to be put over capacity by this new development. I've told them this is going to be solely on the developer up there. And I just wanted to let the board know that. Hopefully everybody understands that. When I put that on them, they came back at me and had McKenna call me. Joe had McKenna call me and say, well, this, and this. I said, no, as far as I'm concerned, it's all on you. It will be on them to put the bill for this stuff. And I just want to make sure that everybody here, they don't try to run around and try to get somebody to. If there's some money out there, McKenna wants to go find them, that's fine. And I've told McKenna that if you can find them something, there isn't going to be anything they're going to throw at a development like this. But that's on them. But once the infrastructure is up and running, it's Department of Health going to require that we take it over, because they're not going to approve it unless we own it after it's up and running. So I have no problem with that. I just, the initial cost, I feel that it should be burdened by them.
Well, and again, I mean, it's early enough in the game that funding can be looked for that doesn't put a burden on the current, using someone like our sewer department really wants to take on $500,000 debt.
We have enough upgrades coming in, so right now, not
I mean, there's two portions, and $500,000 system booster pump.
Yeah.
And lift station.
And then the lift station is
The
ours.
lift station right now, we're looking, because the lift station, it appears right now we're running at about 180 gallons a minute, our max we can run. It appears they're gonna need at least 300, maybe 400 gallons a minute. So it's like an increase, it's gonna be substantial, and that lift station was about $250,000 when it went in. So you're looking at, if you had to redo the whole lift station, you're looking at $250,000. So $750,000 to $1 million, he's gonna have to, but on a $10 million project that he's gonna, obviously he's getting involved because there's money to be made, I feel it's his responsibility.
I think the village undoubtedly will have to address its own, the lift station, which is currently our responsibility. But it occurs to me that if we increase the flow from 180 to 300, 400 gallons, we're able to charge for that flow. It's metered.
Well, it would be filled off the same way that it is off the
So
water meter, but
if we had to incur additional debt for the lift station,
why would we? Right now, that lift station can handle much more capacity than it is handling right now. There's nothing up there that's gonna increase the capacity besides his development. Why would we wanna take any debt on to increase a lift station that has no issues? The only reason it has to be upgraded is because of that project.
I guess what I'm saying is if we had to be involved in additional debt here, the lift station might, at least if you increase the flows through it, our billing will reflect those increased flows. I don't think I'm mistaken on that.
Yeah, we're gonna get more
It's like-
from a
it's
billing
like new
perspective,
business.
but he's gonna have to increase his manpower, increase his,
This is
you know,
something that
dumping
should solely
and
be
whatever
there.
else.
The only reason I'm bringing it up is because I know that the engineer has told him this is how it is everywhere, that any developer that comes in and overburdens any utility, they pick up the cost of those
It
upgrades.
would be just like if we had a high load, like crypto miner come in where we have them pay for the increased usage of electricity. Yes, they're still paying for the electricity because they're utilizing it, but they have to pay for the infrastructure upgrades.
That's what it is. And this happens everywhere.
Because they're
Just,
not
a
necessary.
lot of times he likes to use, it's because of the games that we need this, but it would go on with even without him, the games would go on.
Well, it's gonna continue after the game.
Well, I think at this point, it's up to the developer to look
Yeah.
around and see if you can find funding for this requirement, which the community is not in a position to take on.
And then the second part of this is the development off of
At least
Valley Road.
Yeah, that's another part. There's additional flow.
Well, that one there, with the flows that have come in, that sewer is capable of handling that development. And it's also capable of handling Burrell's development or South Science Center property development on that end of the sewer. It appears that that end is okay. So I just wanted to make sure that it was okay with everybody if I gave a letter stating that we have the capacities to handle the development that's being proposed on West Valley Road. That's a 60-unit development. That's like workforce housing type of stuff that's being done on the Lucy property. That one, we are capable of handling that. And I just want to make sure that it's okay that I give a letter stating that. So they can
So
get it into the APA.
it's capable as is
Yes,
without any additional
yes.
engineering. I don't see a reason why we wouldn't give that letter. I mean, we know this community is desperate for workforce housing. And as long as it's not putting any additional,
We're looking at about 8,800 gallons a day.
and the plant itself has incredible capacity well beyond.
Yeah, it's not any of our plants, even our water, it's not an issue with any of the plants. It was piping that we were concerned with, but the pipe even appears to be fine for the two developments. I just want to make sure that everybody's aware that I will be issuing a letter so they can move forward on that project. They're ready to really jump that's, that seems like that's gonna be a project that goes pretty quickly. to get the
Well,
ADA approval.
I think I met Larry Reagan about
Yeah.
3 years ago when Betty Little brought him up here the first time.
Very nice man.
He's got a lot of background in developing these type of properties down, mostly downstate. Betty was the reason he came up here. I think she might have been either chair or co-chair of the state housing, Senate Housing Committee. And that's how she got him here. But you know, it's a big building, no doubt about it, and it'll look like a big building. But it's the only way that the developer can do these and you know, come out with some skin in the game. Any issues on the issuance of a letter? I think you're clear to go on that project, and the other one will continue to watch what develops. Okay. Anything else, Brad, that you moving? I know we've got some other things I've got coming up later on the agenda here.
Yeah, I mean, we only other things we have going, we're working with Ordo. Here, they're gonna move forward with a big building here on the Oval. We're looking at the outlet of the lake with them. They're requesting that we give them a copy of our report that we had done when we had that camera.
Yep.
Getting the pipe under.
Yeah, they're just because they're expanding that building. It's right here on the Oval. Looks like they might put in maybe some type of restrooms that can be used by the public down at this end, which would be nice.
That would be nice.
Actually, Jim's the one pushing really heavily for that. He's saying,
Pulling the gas in there tomorrow.
yeah, so that's moving forward. So we're working with them on that. And the pump house is the only other one that right now our PFOA and our PFOS samples went out. They came back and it was basically no trace of either one in our raw water, so which is great because this is happening all over the country. Actually, a lot of places are being contaminated with this, and it's real hard to remove from the water. But we came back pretty much non-existent in our water.
Something you said for Springfield Water, huh?
No industry around the lake.
No industry.
And no real big firefighting.
And nothing feeding the lake of any great
Yeah, so
substance.
we knew that was gonna happen, but we did get the samples back, so now we can move forward with the final parts of the upgrade so that we won't have to design any other filtration to take that out of the water.
In association with the Olympic Center projects, including the Oval, which I hadn't heard about before, and that's good news, but I did speak with Terry Bukowski over there the other day. They're going to be looking to us, and this may be the winter, to work with them if they have to. They're going to need a place to displace some of the cars that are parked out back over there. They need that for construction. They're asking if we would consider allocating spaces in the municipal parking lot. Told them I'd bring it up with the board. There's no reason why we shouldn't try to work for them. But the question is, how does that fit in with the local economy and the local business? And the order right now is not bringing a lot of cars into the parking lot, which typically would be our Can-Am and CHE hockey weekend cars in there. They're not there. So my thought would be, if we're going to sit there empty, and we want these improvements to happen in the community. I did point out to them that depending on our contractors in the Main Street project, we could be in that parking lot in the spring. So there's an awareness that once we have our contractor at the table, we're going to have to pay attention to what the Olympic Center projects are.
The lower part is fire retention. They can be, till then.
So I think until then, it's probably okay. But I'll get a little more information from Terry on how much displacement there was going to be. For a while, a few months ago, they were talking about using some of the lower parking lot to stage equipment and stuff that they were going to need on the project, but that seems not to have come up again. So it may be they're going to use the snowfields down the back or some of the shipment. Hard to say. Anyway, we'll start getting more on that, and we probably, well, you're actually having most conversations.
Yeah, they meet with me almost daily.
So it may be helpful for you to try to keep us aware of stuff that's developing that we're not hearing about directly.
They're trying to move forward. They're trying to match the sidewalk in front of the building to us. A couple other things they're working on is the row of flags. We're working on a sidewalk width that we can work with. Because they would like to put those flags right along the curb line
That would be,
on the side, have a sidewalk all the way up and have. I would like to see them push back against the wall. The engineers are saying the wall can't handle can't believe it can't handle some flagpoles, but sunk in the ground, I don't know.
is that the building there would pretty much keep the wind from pushing those too much?
But there's all kinds of things that are working on. I'll keep you filled in on what's going on up there.
Okay, Kimball didn't have anything, so I told him unless he felt a real compassion for a desire to be here, he didn't have to be today. He has got something he's talking about, which I told him we would defer to the next work session, and that is the possibility of acquiring, using some IDEP money, a portable generator, which they can take out to a site when, like, for example, my property lost power one night last winter. If it weren't for the fact that my neighbor had a transformer pad right next door to me, we'd have been without power. That we'd have froze up because they even working as they did, they were out. We were out for about 6 hours. But he's thinking that a portable generator, which they could actually hook in, would keep a property operating until they can make the corrections that were needed. So you'll hear more about that. I asked him to talk to you, Peter, and to Jason.
We've had discussions, we just no details.
So maybe he can get that developed and then come back to us. Art, any update on the land use code?
Yes, we met this morning. I think you have to look at this as what we're trying to do is take away the village and town boundaries if the two entities can agree, so that you don't have a street that's half village, half town that has two different sets of regulations. They're trying to come into areas now that are what we're calling protected neighborhoods. Take Johnson Avenue as an example, maybe parts of Hillcrest. And the people that are there already with vacation rentals at this point would be grandfathered. But as soon as that property changed ownership or any member of the family, then they would no longer be allowed there. And basically, we're not stopping someone that's been doing something right along, but anyone that's coming in new. And eventually down the road, those vacation rentals will go away. At this point, there's 199 of them. And to offset that, we have areas, as you know, the Main Street corridor, all the entranceway corridors, and they're looking to put Old Military Road into that corridor where you could have vacation rentals, you could have them year round. And we're basically trying to push these vacation rentals all into one spot so they're not bothering the working class person who has to get up the next morning. There's also areas that are considered where you can rent with restrictions, which in the village at this point is 90 and the town is 120. One area that they're talking about is the north end of Mirror Lake. And if they want that all one, I think we're back into a negotiation with the town to try to come up with the number of days we think are correct. Otherwise, I think the village just goes its own way. The other area that is being carved out as before is areas that have their own homeowners association, such as the Harbor Condos, Whiteface Inn, Pine Tree Hill. And an interesting note that Patrick Wells found was that we have the ability for people to rent for 14 days and not be charged so they can help pay their taxes. He's finding the majority of the people that are doing that are not village residents. It's kind of interesting, isn't it?
Very interesting.
But I think that's something that we'll have to look into once we kept saying we needed a vacation rental permit to start getting facts, and we're getting them. And thanks to Patrick, we're getting them in a fashion that we can understand what's going on. Also, I don't know if he shared it yet with everybody, but he does have a vacation rental section in his GIS mapping, and you can go in and put in the different fields of who are the 14-day renters, who are the unhosted, where are the protected neighborhoods. And if that hasn't been done yet, that's something we should be able to get to you very shortly. We have one more week before we finalize everything. And then at that point, I know Dean was going to go talk to Craig and the supervisor. And I suppose at that point, after that, it would be good if this came to a workshop session so that everyone, maybe we could bring in the smart board, let people see it, feel it, and get a feeling for what we think should be happening.
I think that's encouraging. You know, the community is expecting some results to come out of it, and obviously at this point, it seems like you're hitting on the topics that have the most expectation of.
So I guess,
Go ahead, Jason.
I just, I guess as my question / comment has to do with the process. Is there an opportunity, like I can reach out to you, Art, and then maybe have you break it down for me? I'm reluctant to be put in a position where the subcommittee does all this work, but then puts it during a workshop session where, even though maybe participants of the public aren't here, they can view it. So they're seeing it at the same time that we are.
No, this is going to come to the boards before it goes out to the public. I think the next step is just what you're saying. I think we need time for the boards to get a look at this, see what's really going on, understand it, ask questions before it goes public, in my opinion. Because then when it does go public, that's where these are just recommendations, and I don't agree with all of them. And I would think that if I lived around Mirror Lake, I wouldn't want to be in a vacation rental area. Personally, I think that's a pretty valuable piece of property, and I know people up there that are selling their houses now because they don't want the parties going on next door.
Well, are the recommendations that you're making, they're specific but loose in general, meaning you're coming to the board with, here is a plan, but nothing really airtight that they can't be adjusted.
Nothing is set in stone. I guess in order to change your plans, you have to have a plan. And this is the steering committee, and it's just that group of people that was put there, their recommendations. That's all it is a starting point. And I know a lot of times they keep jumping in and trying to say this, this, and this. And I say, aren't we supposed to be letting the public make this decision? So I keep trying to push it towards that direction. It's like the number of days. They're saying around Mirror Lake will be 120. And I say, let's have a number of days restriction, but let's not throw a number on it, because I really do think that belongs in the hands of the people around the lake.
I think it would be much more well received if you went that route. I think if we come out and if there's even an appearance of it's already been decided upon by the board, unless it's overwhelmingly supported, the initial reaction is probably just going to be an uproar in some respects. Yeah.
I agree. Yep, I totally agree. But like I say, I know Dean's group is working towards, and I'm part of that, but Dean's really pushing towards having recommendations from the steering committee. But I really do think a lot of that should still be wide open to the public opinion.
Okay.
I know I'm sounding like I'm saying this both ways, but I agree with you. And I do think that our chance to really voice on that is when it comes to a workshop, take a look at what they've got, and maybe it'd be nice if we could get that in advance. Because there is some stuff there, and you do have to understand it.
No, certainly, but here's, I guess, just to circle back, the steering committee's put a lot of work in, but if there isn't on a board level more awareness without having to really kind of be an investigative journalist, and it's on us to kind of reach out to, it might be even more of a debate internally before it even gets to a place where it could be presented externally. So maybe I know you're giving what you can, like little tidbits, but maybe kind of flesh it out a little bit more for the board as a whole. And maybe that's having Patrick kind of use the smart board component to be able to illustrate what your thoughts or the progress. Because I think, again, even from a board level, if you come in like, here's what we've done, and there might be some non-starters, and then you've just spent all that time for
yeah, and remember when you say, here's what we've done, here's what the group is suggesting, that's just a starting point. I do think that the board members should chime in, and I don't think the board members should be the final authority without listening to the people that put them in office.
Agreed.
I know there should be many public hearings, and partly those public hearings will be broken down into who it affects. Like there's areas, part of this is going to be the area around Lake Placid Lake. And maybe that isn't an area that we're so much involved in other than being board members, but the people that will show up at that meeting are people that own homes around the lake or people that own homes on the north end of Mirror Lake. So it isn't everyone there, especially with COVID. We may need to separate this, or the people that live in Johnson Avenue or on Old Military Road, that kind of a thing. And the idea, once again, with trying to push the vacation rentals into certain areas is so that they only bother themselves. If you live on Old Military Road, if you live on Main Street, if you live on one of the entrance corridors to Lake Placid, you consider it a business area and you're going to put up with noise. And if you live in Johnson Avenue, you shouldn't have to. Or McKinley Street. I mean, there's a lot of those. I can get the information to the board if you don't already have it. I've been sending a lot of it to Craig, so I'm sure we can get it to you.
No, and I understand that you don't want to put yourself in a position where information makes its way out before it even, there's no context around it. So I get that. I just, having the board having a more global perspective or context before that recommendation or that sort of, dean presents a piece of paper with all of this, I think would be advantageous for the subcommittee and for the board.
Remember too, Jason, that when this started, we were only putting things together for the outside expert to come in. And then with the town shortfalls in their budget, all of a sudden the outside expert went away and it's going to be done internally now. And really a lot of what we've got is only off the 3 public hearings we had on vacation rentals. So that's where a lot of this is coming from. But now it's going to fall to the 2 boards to make the final decisions. We become the experts listening to the public hearings we have.
Okay, and you've made a point to see where where you can agree, and there's points where the 2 boards have disagreed and not really tried to reconcile that. Is that?
I agree. I mean, I keep mentioning them right off the bat. We all agreed on 90 days. We didn't want that many, but we went up to that, and we agreed on it. The minute we got it in law, they jumped up to 120.
Yes, I still have a bitter taste in my mouth about that in particular. So I want to avoid those sort of circumstances moving forward.
I agree.
In fairness to the town board, they went along with the 90 days because that was the only way that it was perceived that the village was going to go along with it. And there may well have been at least individual town board members who is at the first opportunity we're going to jump on and do exactly what they did.
90 days was a compromise.
The mayor mentioned, I think, Mayor, you threw out like 60 nights. And all the village board members were on that. Yeah, 49. And I know that was the extreme end of it, but the mayor.
Well, but that's how we got to 90 is we gave in. We came up from 45. They came down. And then the minute we got in, they threw that all out the window. Yeah, I agree. And especially before lawsuits were settled. But here we are.
Okay. All right.
And frankly, those lawsuits have not settled yet.
That's not surprising.
Yeah. So I think, it sounds like the steering committee ended up with more of the job, more work than what they were initially led to believe, but something is happening there. Mindy, anything you want to comment on?
I don't think I have anything major. We're in our second round of bills in the new accounting software. Still some glitches to get through. Kathy is not. Yeah. But I hope so.
You're just working through the acclimation process.
And Kathy is unhappy about switching softwares to begin with, so it's been a push to try and get her to learn how to do it. She told me this morning she didn't understand any of it, and she didn't know how to do any of it, and there's no possible way for her to do what she did in the previous software, and I had done it in the previous, or I had done it the day before, what she said she couldn't do. So it's going to be a learning curve. The other girls are doing great. Everything's fine with them. It's a process.
Hey, Mindy, you want to become a teacher? Sounds familiar.
No, there's a reason I didn't. I do not have the patience for it. But other than that, I mean, they're getting there. We'll get to it.
There we go.
I took over for Ginny when Ginny retired, and Ginny was very adverse to change, so we didn't change anything until she retired. Kathy's got a couple of years, she told me, so I couldn't wait 2 years to change the software.
No, And again, Kathy, I go back 10, 12 years ago when we put the initial new system in. And Kathy just is resistant to change, and it takes her a while to get there, but she's kind of forgotten 10 years ago because now that's the
Right.
norm.
Right.
And she'll eventually get there. But-
And there's way more flexibility in the software, and there's way more capability in the software. It's just, we have to learn how to do it all. Tracy and I had to on the financial side, and now we're doing it on the billing side, so,
So bottom line is we'll keep working and encouraging her.
yes. But other than that, that's about it. Oh, and the EV charging stations are up, running, and charging per kilowatt hour.
I think we agreed on 10 cents a kilowatt hour.
Their recommended was 16 cents, but I talked to Kimball, and we're gonna start at 10. And
We don't pay as much.
yeah, so, and go from there. The back office software is really nice. It shows how many kilowatts have been used and how many people have been plugged in and which ports, and
So that begs the question, has it been used?
it has, the girl across the street who works at the post office has an electric car, so she's been charging it. She was charging it before we were charging for the power. So I don't know how much she's charging now. Or initially we were gonna include parking in with the charging fee, because we can do that. But because the revenues go to 2 different places, I don't think we're gonna do it after all.
So
Well-
Mindy, that means that you'll charge for parking and you'll charge to charge your car, it's 2 separate
Yeah.
bills? Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, we have the capability to do it all in one shot. But because the charging revenues are gonna go to the electric department and the parking revenues are gonna go to the general fund, I can't commingle funds. It just doesn't allow me to do it, so.
Well, I think one good thing about that too is that it'll also push people away from when the charging station when they're done. Otherwise, they might leave it there for the day.
Right,
Yep,
right,
that's true. That's true. We don't want that to happen.
no,
Yeah, good point.
So that's encouraging.
Mhm.
It's amazing. We are moving ahead on a lot of different fronts here in terms of technology. There are more electric cars showing up. And my gut tells me that in the next 5 years there'll be more.
I said it the other day. Either there are far more Teslas in town, or I just now know what a Tesla looks like. And
I agree 100%. Ever since they came in up at Price Chopper, you see them everywhere now. And the economy, there's a move for EVs, and we're going to see and that's going to be an issue. That's not necessarily this year, but I could forecast in the next decade, a substantial amount of our power is going to be used for charging, and that's something that we're going to have to probably, maybe future boards are going to have to wrap their heads around and be able to address.
That potentially could become a problem for us down the road, given our allocations of hydro and trying to keep the costs
Yes.
under control. Thank you, Mindy.
I have to run and go get it.
Some other things on the Main Street, I did, with information Ivan had provided that broke out the total cost of replacing the travel lanes on Main Street. I did go to Pat Barnes, who's the Region 1 Commissioner for DOT, and they've acknowledged the material I sent. That's been sent to his planning team. He just acknowledged it today, so some action on that. In conversations that we've had with a consultant, or not a consultant, but an individual who had retired from DOT fairly high up, I've been led to believe that we probably will only get top coat from DOT directly. It appears, it appears that there's other monies available, but the governor has jurisdiction over those monies, so we have to, eventually, we will take a path that will probably take us to the governor's office, maybe through our elected representatives. But this is not unusual. There are other communities that have gone down that same road. And we shouldn't be discouraged by what they handed out to us to begin with. So the letter that Ivan put together basically showed about $2.5 million of the project. I really realistically am hoping that we can get between $1.2 million and $1.5 million of it covered, which would put us at about 50% funding as opposed to debt. So work on that. I just, before I came in, received appraisals on the 2 slivers of land on the northerly edge of the NBT lot. That and we really I haven't had a chance to even read them. Mentioned to Brad and Peter what they were, but the numbers they're okay.
Okay, that's a good segue. Peter Day ran into me.
Certainly the front piece, which is just a very narrow sliver, we're close to what that owner had suggested he would want to get. I think we're close enough. We're probably okay with that one. The other one is obviously part of a much bigger residential property. We haven't fully determined how we're going to approach that yet.
Make an appointment with Janet.
Yes.
For next week.
See if we can't work out a strategy that will keep us in good shape. Obviously, things got really dicey there, and that piece of land is critical to this project getting done. We'll, I would probably at least suggest that, what we're trying to avoid here is an eminent domain proceeding, but maybe we'll have to suggest that and put it out there as a threat. Just so you're aware of what's happening there. The other major item that we had this week, which Mike Pratt sent over to us from Orta, was, and you saw it Friday in the Enterprise. So what was confidential when it came to me is the National Women's Hockey League is looking to use the Olympic Center from January 21st to February 5th. There's 6 teams that would be coming in here. This is aside from the COVID issues that have to be covered. This is a real feather. Would be a real feather in Orta's cap. Becomes even more important because right now Orta's sitting over there basically idle. The capacity is there. The National League put together a whole restricted access plan that was provided to Jay and I. We then directed it to Linda Beers at County Public Health, and she has been incredibly good at working with Orta on it, and I'm encouraged based on some stuff that I saw just a few minutes ago that we may be able to accommodate this. These teams would not be generally moving around the village. They will be pretty much contained in a bubble.
I mean, how's it the Olympic Training Center?
That hasn't been clarified yet. But one thing is, I know, for example, here's a memo from Linda a few minutes ago, and what we're trying to make clear is that no player can leave the hotel room for personal reasons without first advising the director of the program. And in other words, they can't just run to Walgreens or Starbucks without permission. Generally, that would be discouraged. They have to stay in their individual rooms when they're not reporting for a team event. And the team itself has designated work rooms, mostly within the Olympic Center, where they congregate. So it'll be just about no co-mingling with the public. But still, the appeal to this right now, the fact that Orta would benefit from having some activity there. But looking ahead, in future years, it sets Orta up to continue to be the home base for the national women's team, which would be really terrific if guess. I think it'd be more terrific if we could get all hockey back. But the schools are playing some now, Bill,
No, it's all on pause.
is it?
Everything's on pause.
So this is all over the newspaper, put it out Friday. I will tell you the Department of Health and County Health and one of the control room people all have to agree on this before it will become a confirmed transaction. But we read it in the paper, so I wanted you to be aware of the fact that they have worked with the supervisor. I think they're hopeful at some point that we'll put together a solid front support for it. But that's conditioned right now on their meeting all the students. Their program is very good. They actually work with Yale on the protective aspects of this and how they protect the people that are involved and also the people that have to be around them.
The NHL bubble worked, so we didn't copy that.
So
Program it, we should.
Maybe it's in the August sports or the January 1 now.
High school is January 4th.
Okay. If it doesn't get canceled. Right. It is January 4th.
But the governor still hasn't made a decision on
yeah, and when I was talking with Terry Pekoski the other day over the Olympic Center work coming up, he asked the question as to whether what our knowledge was of where the pond hockey program was for late January, and I said, well, the dates are on the calendar. I know he's promoting them and advertising them, but the issue is, as I understand it, and I'll confirm it with Bob himself, but they still don't know for 100% sure that they're going to be able to do it. The difference between pond hockey and the national limit is this is all contained.
Can you hear me, Art? Yeah. You want to unmute?
Yep, I can hear you. I wonder if they can hear us.
If you can, Mayor, I'm not sure what they can do if they have the Ethernet cable.
It looked like we were almost done anyways.
It seemed like it. I thought it was on my end. The school had an internet outage earlier this morning that we addressed. So I ran in and plugged myself into the outlet so I can get a better bandwidth. But I guess it was getting closer to 5.
Well, I guess our meeting's over.
All right. Well, it was nice talking to you.
Good seeing you. I hear you had a good warm day today, huh?
I wouldn't know. It was raining when I came to work, and I'm still at school now, so I haven't been outside for a moment. So now it's dark. So, but I did walk by a few windows, and there was sun shining in. So I guess it was. Have a good one.
Okay. See you, Jason.
Bye.